The Miami Heat, according to new reports, are one of the several teams who could be targeting Atlanta Hawks guard Dejounte Murray heading toward the NBA trade deadline next month. Welcome back to the Team to Beat Miami Heat basketball channel. My name is Amir. Before I get into today's report and video, just want to thank everybody for their continued support of my channel. I also want to thank some Miami Heat content creators, Trent from Miami Heat Network, Ernest from Miami Heat Talk, and Martel from the Miami Heat Zone podcast for collaborating with me. I'm excited that we're getting together, and we're going to start creating more content and hopefully do some sort of weekly or monthly series together. So it's great to have conversations with fellow Heat content creators. So anyway, for this video, I want to talk about Dejounte Murray and the possibility of the Heat trading for him. The Miami Heat have missed out on a ton of other players this past offseason, last year, the year before that. We've been linked to tons of players. We all know Mitchell, Lillard most recently, Kevin Durant, tons of other players if we go back even further. And we've kind of struck out often, which has been unfortunate. And during this Jimmy Butler build, he's 34 years old. We've gotten to the finals twice with him. The Eastern Conference Finals, which we're one shot away from making the finals for a third time. So we've gone far, but we just haven't had enough. And there's been different reasons. Just offensively, we didn't have enough, injuries, etc. But right now, Jimmy is at the twilight of his prime. He probably has 2 max years of like super prime Jimmy, I would say. But yeah, once you get past 35 years old, a lot of folks go downhill. So the Miami Heat need some help. I think at this point, we just constantly are injured. We have the deepest team in the NBA. I love the roster, honestly. And I think we have the potential to win it all this year with this depth, but it all depends on Tyler Hero, I think, because we know Jimmy's going to step up in the playoffs. Bam has been improving, and we could depend on him as a two-way threat, one of the best defenders in the NBA, and he's obviously getting better offensively. So I think the question mark is Tyler Hero. One, his availability. He's been out multiple playoffs with injuries, but he's also just not showed up since the bubble. Basically, he had a good rookie year in the playoffs specifically, but outside of that, he's been averaging like 13 points a game, which is a big drop from his averages this season and last season. So the Miami Heat need help, and they're one of the teams, importantly, that are going to be engaged with the Atlanta Hawks. The Los Angeles Lakers, the Knicks, the Sixers, and the Pistons are expected to have a conversation with the Hawks. That's according to Yahoo Sports' Jake Fisher. So basically, Fisher said that the Hawks guard has generated a substantial market during these preliminary conversations around the league. The Hawks currently are a bad team. They're sitting outside of the play-in tournament. They're 15-21, I believe. They suffered back-to-back first-round playoff exits recently. The Hawks have missed the postseason as well during this Trae Young build, so very inconsistent, very underachieving. So that's forcing their front office to ask some more difficult questions, and it seems like they want to get multiple players off their books so they can add different talent around Trae Young, who's obviously their centerpiece. So on January 5th, Fisher reported that the Atlanta Hawks, they're open for business ahead of the trade deadline, so they're ready to have those talks now. Beyond that, the Hawks were signaling to prospective suitors Trae Young and Jalen Johnson were the only untouchable players, so they mentioned that also Bogdanovich, Hunter are available as well. So I think those are the 3 probably top prospects on the team outside of Trae Young. So yeah, Murray has continued to do well after leaving the Spurs. He is averaging 21 points per game, 5 assists. He's shooting more efficiently. He's 46.6% from the field. And the key here is 39.4% from 3. So he's shooting really well from beyond the arc, better than he ever has. But the duo and backcourt tandem, him and Trae Young, just aren't a fit. It's not translating to wins. He doesn't have the ball in his hands as much, so he's not as effective as a playmaker as he was in San Antonio. His assists are down. So he is a very capable playmaker, which would be very beneficial to the Miami Heat. As we all know, Kyle Lowry's hurt right now, but he's also old, and we prefer him to come off the bench versus a starting role. So we would appreciate that depth by being able to acquire Dejounte Murray. So Dejounte just signed a extension recently, a 4-year, $114 million deal. So it's pretty similar to Tyler Hero's. So Murray basically is one of the most popular rumored players during this trade deadline. And I think it would be a good fit with the Miami Heat because, again, we need a point guard. We need the depth. We only have Kyle Lowry as our only true point guard on our roster. So, but in this scenario, speaking of that, though, in order to acquire him without giving up Tyler Hero, we would have to probably use Kyle Lowry to match the salaries. But Dejounte is only making like 17 or 18 million this year, and Kyle's making 30. So they're going to have to add another piece. But then, so again, Tyler Hero, I don't want to trade Tyler Hero for anybody unless it's like a big name like Donovan Mitchell. And I wouldn't trade him for Dejounte Murray. I don't think that makes the most sense. So, but also I don't think it makes sense for the Hawks because they probably want to open up their books so they can get some new salaries, so they can sign another player to experiment with on the Hawks alongside Trae Young. So Kyle Lowry obviously would be the person that we would have to trade, and that would be a major upgrade for this team. Excuse me. So that would be a major upgrade to this team. So we would have to include Kyle Lowry, and that would be a major upgrade at that position for this team. And not exactly sure who else we would have to take back on their side, but what are they going to want, honestly? That's something we need to think about as well. We need to probably offer multiple first-round picks, or at least one at minimum, and another piece. So Dejounte, when he got traded from the Spurs to the Hawks, he got traded for, I think, 3 first-round picks. So they got a hefty haul, a lot of capital, and I'm pretty sure the Hawks, again, because they're probably going to want to semi-tank this year if they do trade for Kyle Lowry, then they probably want some draft capital, and I would assume they would want 2, at least to recoup 2 of the 3 they gave up. And Kyle Lowry, and then you would have to throw another piece, and I'm sure they would want someone like Nikola Jovic. I'm sure we're not going to trade Jaime Jaquez between the two. I'd rather keep Jaime right now, even though I think the way Nikola's been playing lately, man, that guy's showing that he could be a diamond in the rough also, and he could be the next kind of Porzingis type or Lauri Markkanen type of stretch 7-footer, but also a little different because he's more of a point forward compared to those two folks who are not as good as like playmakers or ball handlers. But anyway, I would assume they would want Jovic, and I would be willing to give him up between the two. But for Dejounte Murray, I don't think I would want to give up Jovic. Just seeing him play these last few games, man, he's showing a lot of potential and could be a really good fit next to Bam Adebayo. So what I'm thinking would be Kyle Lowry, Caleb Martin, because he's on an expiring contract too. And he could be a good fit like on Atlanta, honestly. He's a really good two-way player. He could replace like a Hunter if we take a Hunter in this trade, but I don't know. It could make sense for the Miami Heat, but I don't know. I think that the Hawks would probably want another asset or a better asset that's not expiring necessarily. Maybe a Duncan Robinson along with those picks in Lowry, or again, like I said, a Jovic, a pick or two, and Kyle Lowry, I think. So I don't have that willingness for Dejounte Murray. I think I'd rather wait to see if Donovan Mitchell requests a trade this year or after next season, because he does have one more year next year and then his 5th year in his contract as a player option. So I'd prefer to wait, I think, and just cross our fingers and hope that this Miami Heat team can get healthy at the right time. But even if they do get healthy at the right time, honestly, in the playoffs, Spo just like goes 8 deep, 9 deep max. So he has like a tight leash on his rotation in the playoffs. So a lot of these folks that have been contributing, like the Jay Riches and even like a Haywood Highsmith, who's kind of been in and out of the lineup and inconsistent, or a Caleb Martin. Who knows? We have so many players that have been contributing. Um, might not get some time now because of Jaime Jaquez, is in that rotation. He's getting a ton of fourth quarter minutes. So one of those guys is going to have to take a back seat eventually, or Duncan. I don't know. We have a lot of good players. And so that depth will matter with injuries. But if we're healthy, then it could be beneficial to have a player like a Dejounte Murray versus having that Duncan Robinson or Caleb Martin, perhaps in that small rotation. I don't know what I'm saying, honestly. But I am excited for the potential, just as long as we don't give up a huge haul for Dejounte. But like, he comes from the Spurs organization, which is another structured, classy organization. He's a tough player. He can get buckets for us, which we desperately need. He could play make for us. He was averaging like 7.5 assists with the Spurs. So just, he does need the ball in his hand, but he could also score effectively and still play make with less usage, as we're seeing, because Trae Young is obviously has more usage, has the ball in his hand more, taking more shots, etc. So he could step back, obviously, and let Himi take over, because we know Himi needs to operate with the ball in his hands as well. But I think he'd be a good fit. Not as good as a fit as Donovan Mitchell, but I'd be open-minded to it. So excited about the potential. Excited that Miami Heat's in the mix, but truth be told, we're always in the mix with all these players. Anytime there's a good player available, we're interested. So I don't know. I'm open to it again, but yeah, I'm not sold on trading multiple picks. Honestly, if we can get away with one, I'd prefer one. I don't know, two might be a lot, because again, there's going to be other players that might request trades in the future. Miami Heat's finally getting their picks available. In the past, when Mitchell came available, we didn't have enough draft picks to compete with teams like the Knicks or the Cavs. So I guess we might want to hold on to those, in my opinion. But yeah, you guys let me know what you think in the comments. Do you guys think Dejounte Murray would be a good fit? Do you think we should hold out for a player like Mitchell or anybody else who could be disgruntled? You never know. Joel Embiid, there's been rumors that he could ask out, kind of like a Giannis in the past, but we'll see. Anyway, thanks for watching, guys. Hope you have a good night. Talk to you soon.